Niners fans and Seahawks fans, it's about that time. 7:30 on a Monday night. Faithful Niner Empire. What's good? You know who it is. It's your boy, Jay in the Bay. Once again, always a pleasure and an honor to be on with the best fans in the NFL. Also, we're going to talk about the NFC West today, of course, but always a pleasure and an honor to be on with the faithful, the Niner Empire. We are only 11 days away from the NFL draft. We will talk about that today with my guest today. I do have a special guest. You guys may have seen him before. Goes by the name of Steezy A. Smith. He reps those good old Seattle Seahawks. He also talks about other sports as well. But let's bring on Steezy A. Smith. He's got over 3,000 subscribers on his YouTube channel. I think he has over 170,000 views on his YouTube channel. Make sure you guys check him out if you haven't already checked out Steezy A. Smith. Now let's bring on Steezy. What's good? How you doing?
Man, what's good? What's good, Jay? I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good as per usual. Yourself?
Absolutely. You're looking sharp. You're looking dapper as usual, man. Huge shout
Thank
out
you,
to
man.
you, man.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that for real, bro.
it's
Thank you.
it's it's been a long off season so far. I don't remember the last time we collabed. I know it was last year during the regular season, and obviously the season did not turn out the way for the Seattle Seahawks. We will get into that. But for those that don't know Steezy A. Smith, let them know where they can find you on all your social media platforms. And I know you cover more than one sport, so let the people know what they can expect from you and your YouTube channel, man.
Yes, sir. I appreciate the plug. For those of you guys out there that are tuned in, the name's Calvin Domingo, aka Steezy A. Smith. Like he said, I'm from Seattle. I rep the Seattle Seahawks, but I don't just cover the Seattle Seahawks. I cover all sports. Basketball first was well, actually, basketball was my first love growing up. So now that the NBA playoffs are in full swing, you can expect a whole bunch of NBA playoff content, specifically the Miami Heat, on my channel. I cover a little bit of boxing from time to time, and man, I don't know if you guys seen, but Errol Spence and Jordanis Ugas this past weekend. Hopefully that sets up an Errol Spence and a Terrence Crawford, hopefully before the end of the year, if not early next year. So that's definitely something I'm gonna be covering. But yeah, I'm over here from Seattle, and I love working with Jay in the Bay, one of my favorite Niner fans.
Hey man, I appreciate it, man. And for those that want to tune in to Steezy A. Smith YouTube channel, his IG, his Twitter, all his social media links are in the description of this stream right now. So go ahead, check him out, give him a follow, go ahead and support. Huge shout out to those watching Jay in the Bay Facebook, Jay in the Bay YouTube, and Jay in the Bay Twitter. Let's say what's up to the people in them comments. We got CarCast in the building. What's good? CarCast, a fellow 49er content creator, man. The guy's in high school, man. I wish I had the guts to do what he's doing when I was in high school. But man, huge shout out to you, CarCast. Thanks for coming through to the stream tonight. We have Tommy Huxley in the building. What's good? Appreciate you coming through to the stream, Tommy. Appreciate all your support, man. He says pork bellies. Okay. Now going back, we got to get into the Seahawks season, but I want to throw something at you. What do you think was the biggest NFC West storyline? And you could start from the Rams, winning the Super Bowl up until this point. In your opinion, what's the biggest NFC West storyline?
Man, this one was easy, Jay. I gotta say, Russ being traded.
Yeah,
Not only is he your guys' kryptonite, but I mean, he has been kind of a thorn, on everyone else's side. I'm talking about the Cardinals, maybe not the Rams so much in the last couple of years, but we are talking about a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. And a lot of people they kind of felt that his time was up in Seattle, but I don't think anyone's seen it happening this offseason. And so this one's an easy one. It got to be Russell Wilson. He's the biggest player to be moved, and he's the biggest player to kind of switch teams in recent memory.
no, absolutely. And I would agree with you. I would also say the LA Rams winning the Super Bowl, beating the 49ers in the NFC Championship game. And that was, I definitely didn't expect it. Obviously, they're a great opponent, very talented team. But that was, I thought we had the edge. I thought we would, have our, a quest for 6. I thought that would come to fruition against the Rams. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. But yeah, no doubt. And let's get right into it. I still can't believe the Seahawks have traded arguably the best player I've ever seen lace up in a Seahawks uniform. As you mentioned, he has been a thorn in the 49ers side. Well, let's just put it out. Let's just put it out how it is. He's been dominating the 49ers. Let's be real. 17-4 record. Interesting, though. They only beat us once in the playoffs. That is kind of interesting. But, they've been dominating the 49ers. Obviously, I'm happy to see Russell Wilson go out of the NFC West division. He goes to the AFC West, not too far away. But so, I mean, what is the direction of the franchise? And you talked to Seattle Seahawks fans, were people for trading Russell Wilson? Were they against it? They didn't want to pay him that money. What are your thoughts?
Man, it's tough. I've talked to a lot of Seahawks people, Seahawks fans. I've talked to other people that cover the Seahawks, and people are kind of split. I think the fan base is really torn, on where they're supposed to lean towards as far as, were they for the Russell Wilson trade or were they against the Russell Wilson trade? For me, I'd like to think that majority of the fans are actually against it, but that's why I was surprised to see that there was such a split between being against it and kind of being with it. Like you mentioned, there were reports that he was seeking Patrick Mahomes type money. And so with all these quarterbacks getting paid, Derek Carr, the latest of them, he's now the 7th quarterback in the NFL to reach $40+ million in an average annual value. And so if 7 guys are making $40+ million, Russell Wilson's making 35. And so what do you think Russell Wilson's going to ask for when he's eligible for a contract extension next offseason? I think, but at this point in time, though, I think a lot of people, especially Seahawks fans, are kind of ready to move on. We're looking towards the draft. I don't know if we're going to take a Malik Willis. I know we'll touch on that in a little bit, but I think right now, as far as the direction of the team, Pete and John are saying that they're not rebuilding. They're saying that they're retooling and that they're trying to rebuild on the fly. And so we'll see what happens. I don't think there's really a definitive answer that can be had until after the draft. So we'll see where that takes us.
Yeah, I'm surprised that the Seahawks didn't want to just pony up and pay Russell Wilson. I know Russell Wilson has said some things to the media, it's a little back and forth, but sometimes that happens, when there's, trouble within the head coach and the quarterback. Usually sometimes they don't agree. That's what it seems like. It seems like Pete Carroll wants to run the ball, wants to play good defense, and Russell Wilson, he wants to air it out. He wants to be like Pat Mahomes, making big plays. And the philosophy, they couldn't agree on it. Were you surprised that they couldn't, work it out?
Not really, because I feel like with Pete Carroll, he's very stubborn in his approach, and he hasn't really shown signs of catering to Russell Wilson. I know there was that phase in where Russell Wilson was letting it fly, letting it cook, a couple years ago. And once Russ started struggling, Pete just kind of took the keys away from him. And he was like, nah, you know what? Let's go back to what we do best. And let's go back to, kind of the formula that led us to the Super Bowl and all that success in the past. And so, and because Seattle also wasn't really catering to Russ as far as the personnel department. They weren't, taking his advice, and they weren't willing to build around him. They weren't willing to bring in the players that he wanted. I'm not surprised. This is just who Pete is, and he's very stubborn in his approach.
And I could understand Pete's approach if you still had the Legion of Boom defense, that one of the best defenses we've ever seen in the NFL, and you still had Marshawn Lynch in the backfield running the rock. Like, I could see, okay, we're just going to run the ball. We're going to play great defense. But those players are no longer here. And Chris Carson was, starting running back last year. I believe he ended up getting hurt, but Rashad Penny, picked up where he left off. And you guys were still able to run the ball, but I think the defense has really been lacking, since the Legion of Boom has been disbanded. I know you guys signed Kerry Hyder for the 49ers. He had a great career year with the 49ers, and he wasn't able to replicate that with the Seattle Seahawks. So how can this defense, in your eyes, get better? How can they get better? I know you got Jamal Adams, but in other ways, how can they get better? How do you think?
I definitely think the draft's going to play a huge role in what this defense is going to look like last year. I mean, like you alluded to, this team was 22nd in sacks last year, 25th in takeaways. And it's hard to look at this team and say, oh, this defense is going to be better, especially when Carlos Dunlap was released, especially when Bobby Wagner was released, especially when DJ Reed was let go. but I just feel like there's still foundational pieces to be had on defense, right? We're talking about Jamal Adams, like you talked about. Quandre Diggs was re-signed. Sidney Jones was re-signed. Jordan Brooks was second in the NFL in tackles last year. Cody Barton, in Bobby Wagner's absence, was piling up tackles on a regular basis. We look at the defense in that Russell Wilson trade. I think a very underrated player that nobody talks about, Shelby Harris. He's been not dominant, but he's been, I feel like, flying under the radar in Denver. He definitely has a chip on his shoulder. Seattle re-signed Al Woods. So I think there's a whole lot of depth on the defensive line. I didn't even talk about Quentin Jefferson coming back to Seattle, Puna Ford, a whole bunch in the trenches, a lot more than what we've had in the past. And I think that come the NFL draft, because Seattle does have a fresh cupboard of draft picks, they could devote a lot of this attention towards the draft, especially if Pete wants to go back to, if he wants to go back to his initial original formula. Not only does that entail running the football, but also means building a strong and a dominant defense.
Right. And by the way you talk about the Seattle Seahawks defense, they shouldn't be that bad. I think the key, though, is can the Seahawks get a pass rush, and that's been something that they've been struggling with ever since, Cliff Averill left, Michael Bennett left. Those days are long gone. But that'll be the key, I think, for the Seattle Seahawks defense. Can they get pressure on the quarterback? And that'll definitely help that secondary out. But I got to say, hot diggity dog. I appreciate that $10 super sticker, Blue True. Appreciate you. Thank you for continuing to support the stream. And feel free, for those that are in here, feel free to hit that thumbs up button. Let us know you guys are enjoying the stream. And also check out Steezy A. Smith. All his social media links are in the description of this video. Check him out. And got to get into the direction of the franchise under Carroll and Schneider. Now, they are lockstead. I believe they came to the franchise together the same year. Is that right? I think it was
2009 or 2010?
I think it was one of those. But basically, they've been together for more than a decade, right? Mm-hmm. And I've been very skeptical of Schneider. I would love to hear your opinion about this. But his draft picks, I feel like you guys haven't really drafted well on the defensive side of the ball. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it just seemed like the picks, and also trading for Jamal Adams, 2 first-round picks, in my opinion, just looking from afar, it hasn't really worked out. But what are your thoughts on Schneider's draft approach and also the Jamal Adams trade? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
See, the thing with Seattle is they're always trying to think outside the box, right? They're always trying to think, or maybe they don't think this, but it appears as if they're smarter than the room. And when you look at the guys that they draft, especially in the first round, they're always drafting guys, and it's like, he was supposed to be drafted way later, or Seattle reached, or what's Seattle doing? Rashad Penny comes to mind. Even Bruce Irvin, who was a solid pick for Seattle when he was taken in the first round back in 2012, everybody was like, what? He was supposed to be drafted a lot later on. Jermaine Ifedi didn't work out. And so I could definitely see your point when you talk about Seattle and their draft history, but I feel like that really only applies to Seattle's early round picks. You look at recent memory, Jordan Brooks was drafted in the first round. Like I said, second in the NFL in tackles last year. Darrell Taylor, taken in the second round in the 2020 NFL draft, had 6.5 sacks last year, definitely displayed a whole bunch of potential. And I think he's a perfect fit for what Seattle wants to do defensively. But as far as John Schneider, I feel like it's more Pete Carroll, and I've talked about this before, but Pete Carroll is the vice president of football operations. That means he gets final say over all personnel decisions. Now, again, and I understand that John Schneider is the GM in name. He obviously is going to have a lot of input, a lot of influence on who Seattle brings in via the draft, via trade, via free agency. But at the end of the day, this is Pete Carroll's team, and nothing's going to fly by unless, there's his approval. And so when we look at some of these draft picks, when we look at some of these trades, I'd actually point the finger at Pete Carroll. And you talk about, or you ask me about the Jamal Adams trade. Looking back in hindsight, obviously 2 first rounders, a 3rd round pick, and a starting safety, that's way too much. I mean, because for Russell Wilson, we only got 2 first rounders in return. It was 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and then 3 players.
Like 3 players, yeah.
3 players. And so I get that, but 2 first rounders, I mean, I'm still kind of tripping about how we weren't able to get at least a 3rd first rounder, or at least a pass with 10, maybe even a Bradley Chubb. And we'll get into that later, but that Jamal Adams trade, I think that's Pete Carroll. It has Pete Carroll written all over it. I mean, he's getting older, as we all know, oldest head coach in the NFL. He was looking to win now, and so that's why he gave up so much. But, man, I'm still happy that we have a Jamal on the team. I'm not saying I regret that trade. I just regret everything that we gave up. We gave up way too much capital. And, look, we would have had the 9th and the 10th pick in the first round of this year's draft.
Wow.
So if we would have just traded a first, a third, a starting safety, and let's say maybe a mid-round pick, that would have been cool for Jamal. I don't think anyone was going to pony up 2 first-rounders. And so obviously we lost that trade badly, but Jamal's still somewhat young. And like I said, he is a foundational player on his defense. He did, set the NFL record for most sacks by DB with 9.5. And call it what you want. You can call him blitz boy. You can say that Seattle's, blitzed them way more than any other DB. But the facts are the facts. Most sacks by DB in NFL history, and he only played 12 games that year. And so hopefully in this new scheme, in this more aggressive scheme that Clint Hurtt is looking to implement, hopefully he gets back to being what he does, and hopefully he has a career year in Seattle.
Yeah, I mean, you can't poo-poo on, Jamal Adams. That's what he does best, getting after the quarterback, playing to the line of scrimmage. I think playing in the zone coverage in the backfield, I don't think that's necessarily his strength. I think he's better utilized, around the line of scrimmage, getting after the quarterback, and it shows. That's why he got 9.5 sacks. So, but it'll be interesting to see. I know Pete Carroll's not going to say, okay, we're doing a complete rebuild, we're just going to tank. I know he's not going to say that, but it'll be interesting to see how this works out. Which guys you bring in via the draft. Free agency is pretty much over. I mean, there aren't really any significant guys on the market. I think Tyrann Mathieu, did he sign yet or no? I think he's still
he's
free
still
agent.
Out
So,
there.
I can't think of any big names out there that's still in the free agent market. But I was looking at the Seahawks depth chart. I just didn't see a lot on offense. I know you got DK, you got Tyler, and that brings me to my next point. What are your thoughts on possibly Drew Lock being the starter for the Seahawks?
I wouldn't be completely opposed to it. I did have a talk and a conversation with former Seahawks wide receiver Michael Bumpus on my channel a couple of weeks ago, and he's not very on board, with the thought of Drew Lock starting for the Seattle Seahawks. But at the same time, he also did mention that, look, if this is a retooling type of year, right? Let's say Seattle does, it looks like they're rebuilding in year 1, but they're actually retooling, if that makes sense. Look, Drew Lock is going to help us lose games. And if the goal is to get and target a quarterback in next year's NFL draft, then it's kind of a win-win. Because if he ends up losing games for us, it's like, okay, that's kind of what we expected. And then in next year's draft, we could target a quarterback high. Now, if he ends up winning games for us, then it's like, oh, shoot. We gave him weapons. We have, a solid defense, a solid foundation around him. Let's try to build around him and let's see what we got. And I'm not saying that's going to happen, but look, he is only 25 years old. He does have a rocket of an arm. He does have arguably the best wide receiver duo, if not a top 2, top 3 wide receiver duo in DK and Tyler Lockett. I know Chris Carson's been banged up, but Rashad Penny last 5 weeks of the season, almost 700 yards rushing, led the NFL in yards per carry, had 200 more yards rushing in the last 5 weeks than Jonathan Taylor, the NFL's rushing champion. And so there are some pieces to work with. I know the offensive line is a mess, but like I said, hopefully the draft, Seattle does look to address that. But I think with the Drew Lock, it's going to be a win-win situation. Whether or not he helps us lose games or if he wins games, then we can kind of capitalize on that potential. But I wouldn't be completely opposed to it. I would like Seattle to bring in competition, though, whether that's going to be Geno Smith, whether that's a rookie in the draft. And I'm not in favor of this, but if Baker Mayfield somehow lands in Seattle, I just want to see Drew Lock pushed. And so we'll see what happens there.
We will definitely talk about Baker Mayfield, but first, guys, say what's good to Bird Gang 31. Thanks for tuning into the stream tonight. He is a Eagles content creator, man. Huge shout out to you. I think you reached 2,000 subscribers, man. So keep grinding, man. You're doing well over there. Also, we got KD in the building. What's good? Thanks for tuning in to the stream, KD. Hopefully all is well in your neck of the woods on this Monday night. We got Blown Coverage Fantasy Football. What's good? Thanks for tuning in, man. Appreciate it. In regards to Drew Lock, I mean, I was looking at his stats, and the guy's a turnover machine. In 2020 with Denver, he did have 15 INTs to 16 touchdowns. So I think it's safe to say he has questionable decision making. But if he's able to rely on the running game, if Carson and Penny are healthy for the full year, which I don't think has happened yet in their tenure with the Seahawks, but if they can somehow stay healthy, maybe Drew Lock can hand the ball off 30 to 35 times. And, maybe the Seahawks, make some additions through the draft on the defensive side of the ball. Hey, you never know. You never say never. You never say never. That's for sure. How many draft picks do the Seahawks have? I think it's like 4, right?
No. For this year, I think it's 8 picks. I think it's 8 picks.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I must have seen it. Maybe that was Let's see.
You might be talking about from last year.
Maybe, yeah. Okay, so I was looking at the wrong year. Yeah, because it looks like you have the pick number 9 overall. You got pick 40, pick 41, pick 7. So you got a lot of draft picks. So you guys are, if you guys can hit on these picks, you guys can, retool as Pete Carroll. That's what he envisions for this franchise. So yeah, I can see you guys now. You guys hit on your picks. So speaking of the draft, do you anticipate you guys will actually no? Let me ask you. What would you do? 9th overall pick. Do you trade up? You trade down? You pick BPA, best player available, or you get your quarterback of the future? What do you do? What does Steezy A Smith do?
All right, so I'm going to eliminate 2 of the options that you just presented right off the bat. Trading up, that's not an option. I think at this point we've accumulated, a horde of picks. Now, if there's a prospect that I guess Seattle is in love with, then you trade up. But for me, that's out the picture. Oh. Trading down, I'm not trading down either. I know Seattle is a big proponent of trading down, accumulating more picks, and I know they always talk about the more picks that you have, the more opportunities that you have to bring in blue chip or top prospects. But Seattle hasn't had a top 10 pick since 2010. And maybe one of the reasons why Seattle hasn't hit on a lot of these recent first round picks is because they're never really picking that high. Yeah. But when you're picking in the top 10, you're picking from a crop of elite prospects, the best of the best, or at least the perceived best of the best. And so your chances of hitting on a player, I think, is a lot higher than when you're picking in the late 20s, early 30s, and whatnot. Quarterback, I'm not taking a quarterback at number 9 overall. As we all know, this draft isn't super heavy on star power at the quarterback position. That doesn't mean that you can't find solid players at the quarterback position, but as far as a bona fide top tier star prospect, there isn't any of that. Even though I like Malik Willis, he has a lot of potential. I'm not taking the quarterback. Best player available, I think that's a strategy that I would opt for. But for me personally, with the 9th overall pick, if he's on the board, and I actually dropped the episode on this just a couple of days ago, I'm taking the Sauce. I want Sauce Gardner. He reminds me of a Richard Sherman, not entirely because of his play on the field, but also because of his alpha dog mentality, his swagger, what he brings to the table in terms of measurables, and just his. I don't mean for this to come out as a bad thing, but his cockiness. And I feel like because we have, the best safety duo in the NFL, if we bring in a shutdown cornerback in Sauce Island and the Sauce, Ahmad Sauce Gardner, I feel like Seattle could be on the way to building another Legion of Boom in Seattle.
Wow, building another Legion of Boom. Wow, that's you're going out on the limb there. I mean, you got some Hall of Fame players in that Legion of Boom. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Unfortunately, the Niners, we don't have a first round draft pick. We don't pick until round 2, pick 61. So the first round will kind of be it won't be as enjoyable to watch because we like last year we had the number 3 overall. We selected our quarterback of the future, Trey Lance. So this year is going to be a little bit different. But it'll be very interesting to see what direction the Seahawks will go in this year's draft. Do you think you guys will address the offensive line? Like what's the biggest need you think you could fill in this year's draft?
So for me, it's either cornerback or offensive tackle. I know if you ask a majority of Seahawks fans or people that cover the Seahawks, they'll probably tell you offensive tackle. And just because I'm in favor of taking a Sauce Gardner at number 9 overall does not mean I'm going to neglect the offensive line. Seattle does have 2 picks in the second round, 40th and 41st overall. There's plenty of offensive linemen to be had. And look, this might not be the most quarterback-heavy draft in the NFL, in recent history, but this draft has everything else. Offensive line, defensive line, cornerbacks, safeties, wide receivers, even running backs in the later rounds. This draft has everything. And so take a Sauce at number 9 and then address offensive line with 2 of the picks in the second round.
Okay. All right. We'll see how that plays out. Gotta say what's good to David. Thanks for tuning in tonight. He says, what's good, Jay? Steezy hair looks good, bro. Looking on point, man.
What's good, David? I appreciate that.
Appreciate you coming through, David. Let's see. APW Sports. What's good? APW is a Chicago Bears content creator, man. Appreciate you joining the stream tonight. He says there's not a franchise changing quarterback in this draft. Locke isn't the guy. I'd say grab Mayfield while his value is down. Now, hey, APW just brought out, the Baker Mayfield, the elephant in the room, so to speak. What are your thoughts? Are you for or against Baker? What were your thoughts of him in Cleveland as a starting quarterback? I think the last 4 years.
4 years.
Yeah.
So Baker Mayfield is most definitely an above average quarterback in the NFL. I just don't think he's a franchise quarterback in the NFL, but I do believe that he's a starter. I do believe that if you put a solid team around him, he can help take you to the playoffs. But as far as winning a Super Bowl, I don't know about that. And look, Baker Mayfield is going to be 27 years old when the season starts. I understand Seattle does have a need at the quarterback position, but Baker Mayfield is an alpha, right? And so why would he want to be the man in Seattle after the man? And I'm talking about Russell Wilson. And my good friend Brian Apker, who used to work for the KJR over here in Seattle, one of the sports stations over here, that's what he said. And so I'm going to attribute that to him. I'm going to give him the credit. He's the one who said that. And I thought that was a great point. Why would a Baker Mayfield come in and want to be the man after the man? I just don't think that that's what he wants to do. And in Cleveland, right, when he took that team to the playoffs, when they beat the Steelers a couple years ago, look at the roster that he had. He had the coach of the year. He had the best offensive line of football. He had the best running back duo in football. He had OBJ and Jarvis. He had Myles Garrett and Denzel Ward on defense. In Seattle, he doesn't have any of that. He has one of the worst O-lines in football. The running back group is dynamic and talented, but can't stay healthy. We don't have a coach of the year and a Kevin Stefanski. We don't have star playmakers on defense at defensive end and cornerback. And so Baker Mayfield, I don't see him succeeding in Seattle. Now, I do like that he comes with a chip on his shoulder. I do like that he's overachieved. I do like the fact that he's won a Heisman Trophy. He's been counting that before. I love that about him. But I just think that if he were to come to Seattle, he would bring a circus to Seattle, and through no fault of his own. But I just feel like the media loves to attack him. The media loves to pick on him. And so if he's in Seattle, I don't want none of that extra attention that he's going to bring to the table. Not only that, I'm not going to expect to see the version of him that took that Browns team to the playoffs because his supporting cast is not anywhere near the same. Now, he does have a DK and a Tyler Lockett to work with, but outside of that, and an emerging defense, but outside of that, there isn't really too much in his favor. And I wouldn't want to pay him. I wouldn't want to pay him $30+ million a year just because I do know that if he was to be the quarterback for the Seattle Seahawks, the team's ceiling is limited. I don't see Super Bowls in the near future.
Honestly, if it were me, I would rather have Baker than Drew Lock. Obviously, I think the price tags are probably similar, right? Is Drew Lock still on his rookie deal, right? I think he was a first-round pick. So I think
he wasn't. So, okay, so the thing is, this is a thing that I forgot to point out, but Baker Mayfield is guaranteed $19 million this year, no matter what. Drew Lock is making, I think, under $1 million.
Really?
So right, because he was a second-round pick, and so he's not making that much money. And with the Baker Mayfield, right now, Seattle doesn't have that much cap space. The last time I checked, Seattle only has $16 million in cap space. And so Seattle, the only scenario, the only situation where I'm in favor of Seattle bringing in a Baker Mayfield is if Cleveland is willing to eat up at least half of that salary, or if Cleveland is willing to give us like a third or a fourth round pick for taking on his contract.
No, that's a good point. Another scenario could be if the Seahawks trade for Baker and then they sign Baker to like a 1-year extension. So it's kind of like, hey, you ball out with us this year, we can rip up that contract. It'll also lessen his salary cap this year if they sign him to like a 1-year extension. And they say, hey, you ball out with us, then you could test yourself in free agency and see what you get on the open market. But, Baker, like you said, Baker did win a playoff game against a division rival in the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't want to sound like I'm a Baker Mayfield fan, but Baker Mayfield to Drew Lock, I think I would rather have Baker. And as you said, you might be able to convince Cleveland to eat some of Baker's salary. It could be, $5 million, $9 million, whatever. And also, Cleveland is desperate. They're desperate to get rid of Baker. They don't want Baker Mayfield. Honestly, I don't even think he would be invited to camp, to the locker room. You don't want Baker Mayfield in there when you got your, future quarterback in Deshaun Watson. I don't think you want that. That's not good for the locker room. And I think, if anything, I don't think they would cut Baker, but I think they would trade him eventually to someone, whether could be Carolina, could be, Seattle. But it'll be interesting to see how that plays out with Baker Mayfield in Cleveland. Let's see. Bear Throwbacks. What's good? Thanks for tuning in to the stream tonight, man. He says he's actually in Seattle right now. Is it raining out there in Seattle? Because it always rains in Seattle. Let me know, man. Let me know in them comments. But obviously, a lot of speculation with Baker Mayfield to the Seahawks. Obviously, the Seahawks could use. I feel like Baker is probably a little bit better, but it'd be interesting to see how that plays out. Do you anticipate any trades for your Seattle Seahawks? I know you said you're not going up in the draft, but any way you think you'd be going back in the draft What say you?
I think that's always a possibility. Like I did mention this earlier. Me preferably and me ideally, I wouldn't want to do that just because I do want a chance to grab a top 10 prospect, an elite prospect, if you will, right?
Right.
But if let's say everybody's off the board, let's say Sauce Gardner's off the board, Evan Neal's off the board, Ikem Okongwu's off the board, Derek Stingley's off the board, Jermaine Johnson's off the board. So if all those guys are off the board, then it's like, oh shoot, we might as well trade back and accumulate more picks, and then maybe grab a guy later on where the value is more approximate. And so ideally, I'm not trading back, but if all the prospects that I want are gone, then let's do it.
Hey, I feel you, man. I can't wait for the draft. It can't come any sooner. Only 11 days away. And I told you, I knew it. There, Throwback says how high it was raining most of the day, barely stopped. Yeah, I knew it. So you gave me Sauce Gardner, a cornerback. Now give me an offensive player who you think could really benefit the Seattle Seahawks, whether it be offensive line, whether it be a skill position. Let me know.
Man, like I just mentioned his name, but Ikem Okongwu from NC State, the
Okay.
baller, bruiser of a tackle. He's a little undersized for his position, 6'4", about 318 pounds. But look, Pete Carroll's talked about wanting to run the football, right? Well, why not grab the most dominant run blocking tackle in the draft? Ikem Okongwu. Like I said, he's a little undersized, but man, he plays with so much power. He plays with a little bit of finesse in the run blocking game. He does need a little bit of work in the pass protection aspect of his game, but look, he's a rookie, and Seattle's not going to be expected to win anytime soon. And I don't think it matters who's starting at quarterback, but we're not really going to be dropping back to pass a whole lot. And so if Seattle wants to double down on that philosophy, then grab the best run blocking tackle in the draft. Ikem Okongwu.
Hey, man, that makes sense to me. The 49ers brass, we've drafted someone either on the offensive or defensive line with every year except for the Trey Lance draft last year. So I definitely know about trenches, and that's where football is won and lost, in my opinion, in the trenches. Facts. If you can't block, you're not going to be able to do anything on the offensive side of the ball. Gotta ask you, it's funny, DK Metcalf and Deebo Samuel, they were drafted the same year in the draft. And it's funny, they have the same agent. I didn't know that before today. So that's news to me. And AJ Brown, I believe, for the Tennessee Titans. So all three of those guys are in the second to last year of their contract. Of course, they want to get the bag. They want to extend their contract, this season. We've seen Tyreek Hill, get an extension. We've seen Devontae Adams. I think we saw Stephon Diggs get an extension. Now, just quick 49er question. Now, Deebo Samuel, what are your thoughts on Deebo? What do you think he should get? Do you think he should get Tyreek Hill money? You'll make it $30 million a year. Or should he be, 20 to 25, somewhere range? I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Hey, look, bro, you can ask me any 49ers question, but I know I'm a Seahawks guy, but I like, paying attention to what's going on over there with you guys. I think with Deebo, 20 to 25. Look, with Tyreek, he's a top 3, top 5 wide receiver in the NFL, 3-time first team All-Pro, 6-time Pro Bowler. He has a Super Bowl ring. And he has been one of the best wide receivers in football now for the last, 4 to 5 years. I think Deebo, they have the talent to one day be, in that upper echelon, to one day be considered, in the same class as a Devontae, as a Tyreek. But those guys are veterans. Those guys have been doing it for years and years and years. Deebo had a career year last year, but I don't think he's ever played a full 16-game season, I don't believe. And last year was really his best year. Before that, we hadn't really seen him go off like that, right? We've seen flashes, but then again, he's been inconsistent as far as being able to stay healthy. And so both him and DK, I think that, 20 to 25 is perfect, especially given their ages. But as far as proven production and longevity in the league, they're not up there with Devontae and Tyreek, not yet.
I completely agree. The biggest knock on Deebo, as you mentioned, he's never played a full 16 or 17 game season. I think last year he missed one game, I think.
One game.
And in his rookie season, I think he played majority of the games. But his rookie season, it was good. Like 53 catches, 800 plus receiving yards. That's a pretty good rookie year. Second year, he had some injuries, didn't come into camp in the best of shape. And that was definitely a disappointing season. I think he only played like 12 games. He was not effective that year. And then the third year, he has the greatest season a 49er receiver has ever had, over 2,000 yards from scrimmage, even beat Jerry Rice, the GOAT. But, he was running the ball. And part of the reason I think he was running the ball was because Jimmy G wouldn't throw outside the numbers. Jimmy G wouldn't really throw the ball downfield. So get the ball into the hands of your best player, and that's what the 49ers did with Deebo Samuel last year. And I agree, Deebo just doesn't have the track record. He hasn't put up back-to-back all-pro, Pro Bowl caliber seasons like Tyreek and Devontae and Stephon Diggs. He can become that caliber of player, but I don't think he's there yet. And I think the 49ers are probably more comfortable in the $20 to $22 million per year range. And I know Deebo hasn't said it, I don't think, but I think there's rumblings from his camp that he wants 25 mil per year. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out, especially since all three players, AJ Brown, DK, and Deebo all have the same agent. So obviously, whoever signs first, the other player is going to want more than that receiver. So we'll see how that plays out. It's a great problem to have if you're the agent.
Hey, but Jay, I just wanted to add, though, I think out of all those three, I'm not saying that Deebo is the best player. Now, he could be, but I'm not going to go that far just yet. I do just want to add, I think Deebo deserves the most money, though. And the reason why I say that, and you know this, it's because, look, he's essentially a wide back. You know, he had 365 yards rushing last year, but 8 rushing touchdowns. That's a lot more than some of the better running backs in the National Football League. And I think we're just starting to see, you know, the tip of the iceberg as it pertains to what else he can do on the football field. He's more versatile. He's more dynamic than a DK and an AJ Brown, and he means more to the football team. He's more valuable. And so I think as if we were to rank who's going to get paid the most, I think it should be Deebo, DK, and then AJ.
And I don't think, even if that's the order, I don't think a lot of money will separate those three. No. And it's funny, you know, Deebo was the focal point of the offense last year, especially in the second half of the season. Elijah Mitchell, you know, our stud rookie running back, he only played in 11 games. He was banged up a lot during last year. But I feel like with Trey Lance being the starter, I feel like we won't need to rely as much on Deebo. I definitely don't want to see Deebo running the ball 8 times a game in the back half of the year. I definitely don't want to see that. I don't think he'll be able to hold up. Now, if we want to bring that out in the playoffs, hey, I'm all for it. But I don't want to see Deebo get that wear and tear with running the ball. Hopefully, our running backs will be able to stay healthy, so we won't need Deebo to carry the load, you know, on the offensive side of the ball. But I think our offense will look much different with Trey Lance under center.
So my bad, Jay. I just wanted to kind of add one more thing. To me, I'm a little confused because it's like you guys are paying Trey Lance rookie money, obviously, right? And you guys are about to trade, or it's inevitable that you guys are going to trade a Jimmy G who's taking up $28 million. Once you trade him, you save a lot of money. But if you got Trey Lance and you're paying him rookie money, what's the holdup on paying Deebo Samuel?
That's a great question. But when you look at our roster, we're already paying a lot of guys top dollar. You look at George Kittle, he's making top tight end money. Trent Williams at left tackle, he's making top left tackle money. Kyle Juszczyk, the fullback, he's making top money. Eric Armstead, Nick Bosa will, but not yet. Fred Warner, he's at the top of the linebacker market. And then you look at Jimmy Ward, he's not on a long-term deal, but he is making top dollar. So I think that's part of the reason. But let's be real. The biggest reason is number 10 is still on the roster. As you said, he's accounting for $28 million salary. The intentions were to trade him this offseason, but he got shoulder surgery it was like 2 or 3 days before the start of free agency. So obviously some teams are going to be concerned about trading for a quarterback. Reports are Jimmy won't be able to throw until June. And if I was a team that was interested in Jimmy, I'd be concerned about that. This is a guy, Jimmy, that he's had trouble staying healthy his entire career. But if he's healthy, hey, he's got 2 NFC championships, attached to his name, and also a Super Bowl appearance. So hopefully we will see a draft day trade, Jimmy G to Carolina. That's what I'm hoping that we'll see. But let's see what people are saying in them comments. Let's see. Blue True says, wow, I did not know that Deebo Metcalf have the same agent. Yeah, I mean, it's a great problem to have if you're that agent, man. You got 2 young guys who are about to break the bank on their next contract. So we got LeBron Ship. What's good? Appreciate you tuning in to the stream, man. Hopefully you're doing well on a Monday night. NYCE says, I think Deebo was used in the backfield because our backfield was weak and Kyle didn't trust Trey Sermon or other backs but Mitchell. And I would agree with you. I would definitely agree with you on that, NYCE. Trey Sermon, the rookie we drafted last year, he got hurt on the first carry he had. I think it was in the second game of the season. He got hurt, and Shanahan didn't really believe in Sermon. It was either Mitchell or Debo running a rock for majority of the year. So great point. And I don't think Debo will be used as a wide. At least I don't want to see it. He's not going to be able to stay healthy, I don't think. I know Cordarrelle Patterson does it in Atlanta. But let's be real. That's the Atlanta Falcons. We're the 49ers. Just, let's keep things into perspective here, okay? Let's keep things into perspective, man. But, I wish the best for Debo. Hopefully Debo and the Niners can come to an agreement. Obviously, the sooner the better. When Jimmy G's off of the books, I think we will see that come to fruition. So, what do you anticipate DK will get as far as per year? What do you think?
Man, that's tough. About a couple weeks ago, I dropped that episode on my channel titled "Why the Seahawks Will Be Foolish," absolutely foolish to trade a DK Metcalf. And in that video, I made a prediction as to what I feel like we're going to end up giving him. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong, just because, I'm not married to my statements. I am a little fluid when it comes to, numbers and stuff like that. But I think ultimately, it'll just take 24 and a half, maybe 25 mil to sign DK to a long-term extension. Obviously, you don't always pay players based on what they've done in the past. You pay them for what they're about to do. He's only 24 years old. He will be 25 come December. And we've already seen him being a second-team All-Pro. We've already seen him break the receiving yards record in franchise history, previously held by Steve Largent. And so I think he still has so much potential. And I'm not saying he is a Megatron, but just the fact that his name has been mentioned in the same breath as a Megatron, I think that speaks volumes to his potential, to what he can do. I mean, 6'4", a 4.3 40-yard dash. You don't find a lot of athletes like that. And so I know a lot of people are talking about how, wide receivers are easily replaceable. You can't find 6'4", 230-pound dudes that run 4.3 40-yard dashes on a regular basis. You just can't. So for me, I know a lot of people are against paying DK that much money, but who else are you going to pay in Seattle? Pay the man 25 mil.
Yeah. If a team offered you 2 first-round picks for a DK, would you take that, or you keep it DK?
Low key,
let's say the Jets. The Jets have picked 4 overall and 10 overall in this year's draft. Would you keep DK, or you accept that trade? You get 2 first-round picks.
Oh no, 1,000%. I'm taking that trade. But the thing is, I don't think the Jets are going to give up that much. That's a lot of capital for a wide receiver they'd have to extend. But yeah, no, 2 first-round picks. If a team is willing to offer that, I'm taking it.
No, I mean, I don't blame you. If a team, and I know this won't be a popular opinion, especially since I'm a 49er fan, but I love Debo. I want him to stay. But if they're far apart as far as salary wise on his next contract, then you do have to treat this as a business as it is, and possibly look to move him, especially if the Jets will offer you a king's ransom of picks, which probably won't happen. But the 49ers need to at least keep that in the back of their mind. But in this situation and in DK's situation, which side do you think has the leverage? Is it the team or is it the player in this situation?
Are you talking about between DK and Seattle? That's a good question. I feel like in this scenario, I think Seattle actually has a little bit more leverage than people realize. And the only reason why I say that is because DK is entering the last year of his contract. So technically, there's still 1 more year remaining on his contract. Seattle does not have to pay him this year. Seattle does not have to trade him this year. He could stay and play out the final year of his contract, and Seattle could kind of revisit things, reevaluate the entire situation come next year. And so I think with that being said, Seattle does have a little more leverage. And when you look at the market, DK is probably waiting, for those other guys to get paid. And so he doesn't mind sitting back. And, if he has to wait till next year to get paid, then so be it.
I completely agree with you. I think, especially since the players that we mentioned are second round picks, they don't have that 5th year option. Exactly. And players nowadays, they can't really hold out. I mean, they're going to get fined every day. And I don't believe the team can rescind those fines. I know they used to do that. I don't think they can rescind those fines anymore. So pretty much either in our situation, the 49ers situation, Debo will either play out the last year of his deal. We could technically still franchise tag him too, I believe, for the next 2 years, which I don't want to do because I'd just rather either sign him long-term or you trade him, in my opinion. But hopefully we get the long-term deal done because I know players, they don't like the franchise tag. NYC says, okay, I already read that one. I think it was APW says, I'm with Steezy. Debo isn't the best, but he deserves more because he's utilized in so many ways. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
No argument there. David says, we signed players before training camp in July. Kittle and Warner signed their deals midsummer. Yeah, and I think that'll have to be the case because number 10 is still on the roster. NYCE, Debo was leading the league in receiving for several weeks, so he was getting the ball. I believe Debo is holding out until Metcalf and AJ sign, so he gets the upper hand. Remember, Trent did that too. Interesting. Okay, yeah, that is another element to these negotiations. So we'll see what happens. We shall see. Got to get your thoughts on. Let's see. We talked about. Oh, any interest in trading Jamal Adams to a team? Any interest in that?
Nah. I mean, look, like I said, he's one of the foundational players on his team. And Clint Hurt, our new defensive coordinator in Seattle, he talked about how the defense and the coaching staff, they used Jamal wrong, or they didn't use him to the best of his abilities last year. Clint Hurt is on record saying that the defense is going to be more aggressive. There's going to be more blitzing. There's going to be less zones. There's going to be more man-to-man. And they're going to use Jamal more to his strengths, which is playing downhill, playing at or near the line of scrimmage. He's not always going to be blitzing, but his energy is so contagious and so infectious that you want him playing downhill just because if he's doing that, he's, hyping up the rest of the team. He's also another source of pass rush. People look at Seattle's pass rush and think, oh my gosh, they finished 22nd in the NFL last year. They've been struggling with pass rush, but he's going to help in that department. And if Seattle is going to use him more correctly, why trade him?
No, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it really doesn't make sense to trade him unless they got an offer that they couldn't refuse, but I really don't see that happening. But it'll be very interesting. I want to hear your outlook on the season. Now, let's say Seattle hits on their picks. Can they compete in this division and possibly get to the playoffs with Drew Lock as their starting quarterback?
It's going to be tough, but I feel like it's definitely possible. And the only reason why it's possible, the only reason why I'm saying that is not because I'm a homer, not because I'm a Seahawks fan, but when you look at the state of the NFC, the state of the NFC is so weak. It's in flux. Outside of our division, the Buccaneers are contenders, right?
Yeah.
But who else?
Yeah, I guess you got Green Bay.
I see, but with Green Bay, they just
lost
Devontae. Receiver in football. And so, okay, they bring in a couple of rookies. Aaron Rodgers has a propensity to not play up to standard in the playoffs, even with the Devontae. And now we expect him to do that with the rookie wide receiver? I don't see that happening, especially now with a Sammy Watkins at wide receiver. No disrespect to him, but he hasn't been able to stay healthy. Rodgers doesn't perform in the playoffs. And so I don't trust Green Bay. I don't trust Dallas. Arizona, I don't trust them. Atlanta, no. New Orleans, that's kind of up in the air. But outside of the Rams and the Niners, there aren't that many threats in the NFC. And so I think by virtue of that and the weak state of the NFC, Seattle does have a small chance of potentially making a push if they do hit on their picks in the draft.
And that is a big if, and we will see what happens with that. NBS, what's good? Thanks for tuning in to the stream, man. Hopefully you are doing well. Someone was going to ask you, what was it? It was about... I think it was about the draft. Maybe it'll come back to me. David says Tony Dandy wants Debo signed because he has the worst case of the three. Then he uses Debo's deal to negotiate DK and AJ's deals. Well, I don't care who signs first. Obviously, I prefer it be Debo, so that way we can just, this will be water under the bridge and everyone will be happy with each other. But we will see, man. It'll be an interesting, very interesting offseason. Let's see. I like Tommy's. You want Debo. The price is 4 first. Obviously we wouldn't get that, but I think that's what it wouldn't take 4 first, but you're looking at least 2 first. It had to be an offer that the Niners can refuse in order. Now, a great point to be made is Debo's value wouldn't be any higher than it is now after having 2,000 yards from scrimmage. I mean, do we really think he's going to replicate that? I don't think so. But I think if it's 2 firsts, maybe a player, or a first and a second, maybe 2 players, something like that, you're going to have to overpay to get Debo Samuel. Absolutely. LeBron says, if Debo was smart, he would sign now. Would you rather make $4 million next year or maybe 15 to 20? Yeah, that's true. I mean, I don't know how you feel, Steezy, but I would never tell a player to take less to stay with my team. I mean, NFL players have a short shelf life. One hit, their career could be over. So I hope Debo gets the bag. I mean, he will get it, and I just hope it's from the 49ers. But how do you feel about that? Would you ever want a player to take less to stay with your team, or you think they should just
Never.
get as much as they can?
Nah, one thing about me, Jays, I'm always pro player. I'm always about players getting all their money, even if it's at the expense of my team. And so some fans, for example, are mad at the fact that Russell Wilson left because, he wanted Patrick Mahomes' money. But like you said, bro, you said it perfectly. Players have a short shelf life. And if we was in the player's shoes, we would be doing the same thing. Yeah. We will be looking to extract as much money as we could possibly get from the owners, from the teams, from the management, from the front office, because, we have a right to do that, right? It's not like, because the team says so, we have to abide by that, or we have to take the offer that's on the table. If we feel like we're worth more than that, then we take it. At the end of the day, it's all about knowing your self-worth. If you know you could get more, then get more.
Right. No, absolutely. And it's all a part of the negotiation process. You aim high so you have room to, negotiate. But, I don't blame Debo at all wanting as much as he can get. Because let's be real. I think this will be Debo's biggest contract. I don't think 4 more years down the line, he'll be nearing 30. I don't think another team is going to sign him to another 3 or 4 year max deal. So, this isn't basketball. He's going to have a lot of wear and tear on him. And he's going to be taking a lot of hits. So I think this could be, hey, this is his payday. So he's going to try to get as much as he can get. I don't blame him. NBS brings up a great point. He says Seattle has to rebuild. Why have DK's bag hanging over your head when you don't know if you'll get your franchise quarterback anytime soon? So, yeah, why not take 2 first-round picks if you could get for DK?
Well, if it's 2 first rounders, then like I said, definitely trade him. But if the offer is only 1 first rounder and like a third, I'm not taking that. I understand why have his bag hanging over their head, but if Seattle finishes with one of the worst records in football next year, we have an opportunity to draft a CJ Stroud, a Bryce Young next year. And wouldn't you want to surround that said quarterback with a Ferrari, like a DK Metcalf or a Drew Lock, for example? Let's say Seattle believes in Drew Lock a little bit more than people are really willing to give them credit. What if what if DK is the guy that kind of unlocks Drew Lock? What if we see the best version of a Drew Lock because of the presence of a DK Metcalf, right? We talk about his strengths, and I know Drew Lock might not have very many strengths in the eyes of many, but his biggest strength is his rocket of an arm. And if DK's biggest strength is his speed and ability to get down the field, then wouldn't those two be the perfect combination for each other? Or wouldn't they be a match made in heaven, Drew Lock and DK Metcalf? And one more thing. Seattle's roster right now only has 2 players with a cap hit north of $10 million. Who else is Seattle going to pay? You look at Tyreek Hill's contract, right? Okay, the numbers look astronomical. 4 years, $120 million, $30 million a year. But when you look at the structure and the mechanisms of the contract, it's really only a 3-year, $72.2 million deal. And so after 3 years, the rest of his contract is non-guaranteed. And so with DK's contract, you can kind of do the same thing. You can kind of structure his contract to where you front load the deal, you give him all that money in the first couple of years of the deal, and then the last 2 to 3 years is non-guaranteed. And so Seattle really isn't paying anyone right now. The team already doesn't have very much talent, doesn't have very many stars, and DK could be the guy that draws other stars to Seattle. And again, this isn't going to be a complete rebuilding process. Pete Carroll is the oldest head coach in the league. He's not going to stick around 4 or 5 years for a full-length rebuild. It's a retool like we've talked about, right? And so with the DK Metcalf, that's the sort of player that you'd want to get in the draft. Why trade him away when you can still give him money, but not give him as much money as he could possibly want, just because you can structure it in many different ways? He makes a great point. He or she makes a great point, but at the end of the day, there's other things to kind of consider. There's also politics off the field to consider, and we don't just consider everything on the field.
No, absolutely right. And APW Sports, great question. He says, is Pete Carroll out after this season if Seattle bottoms out this coming season? I would say no. What say you?
I'd also say no, just because, like I said, he pretty much is a Seattle Seahawks. After the owner, he has all the power in Seattle. And because the owner, Jody Allen, right now isn't really, or at least from what I could tell, it doesn't really seem like she's super invested in the team. Pete Carroll essentially right now is the acting owner of the Seattle Seahawks. He has the most power, the most influence in the organization. No one could fire him. Only Jody Allen could do that. But if she doesn't care very much about the team, why would she care to fire him? Right. And so he's really the only one that can fire himself. Now, if he's worn out, if he feels like he's given up on the process, then yeah, he'll retire, but nobody can fire him. So I don't think that he's out after the season, no matter what happens.
How many, offhand, how many years he has left on his contract?
So he signed an extension during the 2020 season, a 5-year extension with 1 year left. And so I think, if I'm not mistaken, he has 3 or 4 more years, one of the two, but there's still plenty of time on that contract.
Yeah, no, yeah. Yeah, he seems like a football lifer. He always seems like he has a ton of energy. He's chewing that gum, and man, he's ready to go on the sideline. NYCE. I don't think Jimmy is holding up the Debo signing because they can sign Debo and just front load and move things around because teams will get that increase this season. The 49ers salary cap situation right now, I believe it's like $3 million or less. Like, we were one of the bottom teams as far as salary cap available. So I think Jimmy is holding up. Now, behind the scenes, John Lynch and Debo's representatives, they can agree to a contract, but they just don't sign it until, the money's actually available. And I think that's what they'll do. And I think we will see that, as soon as Jimmy's off the books. We have Niner Sickness in the building. School. Thanks for tuning in to the stream. Niner Sickness. Hope all is well for you, man. LeBron says if Debo was to re-sign right now, he would make from 13 to maybe 17 cap hit because of the signing bonus. His hit will go up to like 20 to 25 the next year. Yeah, that makes sense. And I could even see his cap hit this year being a little bit less because I've seen, as Steezy said, man, they can structure contracts any way they want. They can front load it. They can back load it. So, yeah, man. We'll see how that happens. NYCE, I'm sorry, Jay, I can't do it. I lost my DJ. Yeah, that's my DJ. Yeah, it sucks to lose DJ Jones, man. He was a 6th or 7th round pick, one of John Lynch's in John Lynch's first year with the team, and he earned every penny he got. And we're gonna see the Broncos this year, so we'll see DJ Jones, we'll see Russell Wilson. So, but yeah, man, that would suck. That would suck to lose Debo as well. Let's see. Tommy says, Steezy, how many wins will Seattle have? Top of your head.
Man, right now, I'm going to say 7. I think Seattle's going to be one of those teams that's feisty. I think Seattle's going to be one of those teams that nobody wants to play, and I think Seattle's going to be one of those teams that overachieves.
Hey, I respect it, man. And you guys have talent on both sides of the ball. You got a lot of draft picks, so you guys can hit on your draft picks. You can definitely be competitive in the NFC West for sure. So, it'll be very, very interesting to see how that plays out. But I got to say, man, it's been a blast having you on tonight, man. It's always good to link up and collab with you and get to know the Seattle Seahawks and see the inner workings of that team and that franchise and see their plan going forward. So for the people that don't know, well, make sure you hit that thumbs up button and also make sure you subscribe to Jay in the Bay and also Steezy A Smith. All of Steezy A Smith's social media links are in the description of this video. So if you like what you hear, go ahead and support Steezy A Smith. And for those that don't know, let them know what they can find and look forward to on your YouTube channel.
Yes, sir. Hey, Jay in the Bay, man, my brother. Thanks for having me on, bro. This is always fun. I think this is probably the 3rd or 4th time we've linked up.
Yeah.
And best believe, bro, I've just started this live streaming game probably like a month or 2 ago. So I'm gonna definitely have you on my show sooner rather than later. But to everybody out there, if you already subscribed to my man's, please at Jay in the Bay, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, all that good stuff. Be sure to show him some love before you even think about showing me any love. After you do that, ask Steezy A Smith, primarily on YouTube, but then again, I have been working very diligently on Instagram and Twitter to increase my following on there. I've been trying to drop more content that's exclusive to Twitter and Instagram, so be sure to find me on there. Then again, I don't just cover the Seahawks, I also cover the NBA, a little bit of boxing. I am looking to get into baseball. My Mariners is looking good. So if any of those things sounds interesting or appealing, head on over to my channel at Steezy A Smith, like Jay in the Bay said. All the links will be down in the description below. But before you do any of that, first subscribe to Jay in the Bay.
Appreciate it, man. And I'm looking forward to the next time we collab, maybe right before the season. We'll do like predictions and things like that. But it's always a blast, man. Stay safe out there, man. And I appreciate you for joining me tonight.
Hey, always, bro. And one more question, though, bro. Do you live in San Fran?
I live in the Bay. You
live in the Bay? Okay. Because I'm going to be in San Fran a couple weeks from today.
Okay.
Probably a little over 2 weeks, but I am going to be in San Fran. I'm going to spend the draft over there in San Fran. So
nice.
If you ever got some time, bro, maybe we can link up. I'll hit you up, though. We'll think of something.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, hit me up while you're over here, man. We'll see if we can link up. Absolutely, man.
For sure.
But I appreciate you coming on, man. You have a good rest of your night, man. I appreciate you.
Hey, thanks for having me on. To everybody out there, thank you so much, y'all. Love.
Absolutely. And that was Steezy A. Smith, man. Always represents his team well. And he not only just talks about the Seahawks, but he talks about other sports, other teams. So make sure you guys go check out Steezy A. Smith, man. It's always a pleasure having Steezy A. Smith on. Very knowledgeable, man. Very, very knowledgeable. And I love having him on. And I can't wait to do another collab with him, probably during the season. But definitely looking forward to that. Jag. Jag, what's good? Jag says, what's good, Steezy? How he feels about his quarterback situation. Would he like Baker at quarterback one? We definitely talked about this on the show earlier, Jag. And Steezy is not a big fan of Baker Mayfield, and he doesn't like Baker Mayfield's price tag. Baker's scheduled to make, I think it's $18 million per year. He is in the final year of his contract, but Drew Lock is making significantly less. And Steezy would rather ride with Drew Lock unless, the Cleveland Browns would eat maybe half of Baker's salary. Maybe he would consider it then. But for me, if I was a Seahawks fan, I would probably rather have Baker than Drew Lock. But, we'll see what happens. But great question, Jack. We have Gloomy Lunatic in the building. What's good? Appreciate you for coming through tonight. APW Sports, man. Appreciate the kind words, man. Appreciate you. And Steezy A. Smith says, thank y'all for having me. Absolutely, man. It's always fun talking football with you, Steezy. Always fun, man. But huge shout out to everyone tuning in to the stream tonight, especially if you watch intheBay Facebook, intheBay YouTube, and intheBay Twitter. Thank you guys for coming out on a Monday night. And huge shout out to Blue True for that super chat. Appreciate you for coming through, Blue True. And if you can tune in to Jay and the Bay, latest 49ers news. I will probably do another live stream sometime this week. Of course, Deebo Samuel, the news, that's what everyone's talking about with the 49ers and Deebo Samuel. And we have OTAs that are starting tomorrow. Not expecting to see Deebo Samuel there. I don't expect to see Deebo Samuel participate in any team activities until it's absolutely mandatory. And I believe I'd have to check on that date for you. I don't want to say the wrong date, but it'll be sometime in the next few months when it's mandatory. Then I think he'll be there, but I just don't see Deebo showing up for any team activities until he's got that new contract. I would love to see, Deebo be with the other wide receivers with Trey Lance, so they could develop that rapport with each other. That's something that, that it's invaluable, man. That time together. I wish Deebo would, link up with Trey Lance and the other wide receivers and get that work in. But it is what it is. Also, the 49ers signed a few players as well, but you guys already heard about that. We signed an edge rusher, and I think it was another receiver, I believe. But appreciate everyone for tuning in tonight to the Jay and the Bay YouTube channel. Everyone have a great rest of your week. Make it a productive week. I think I have a few comments. Let's see. Jag, same to you, man. Stay blessed. Absolutely. And everyone's showing love to Steezy A. Smith. That's what I like to see. Let's see. Steezy A. Smith says, gratitude for the kind words. All praise and glory to the man upstairs. Thank you so much, my brother. Hey, man. And you have a great rest of your week, Steezy A. Smith. And yeah, man, hit me up when you're in the city, man. Hit me up. And thanks for watching your boy, Jay in the Bay. And I will see you guys in the next one. Go Niners.